UK Anti-Doping, a public body, are looking for 2 people to join their board as non-executive directors. We've got Nicole Sapstead, the CEO, and Trevor Pearce, the chair, here to tell you about the role and answer some of the questions we've received from interested candidates. So I'm going to kick off with you, Trevor. Why does UK Anti-Doping exist? Tell us about the UK AD and the role of the board.
Well, UK Anti-Doping is the national anti-doping organisation of the United Kingdom. And we're here to make sure quite a convoluted governance structure down from an international treaty through the World Anti-Doping Code to the UK delivers anti-doping arrangements for the United Kingdom. So we're there to make sure that there are no prohibited substances, no doping cheating in sport for our athletes and other athletes when they come to the UK or they compete in the UK. So that's broadly the remit, and Nicole can say a bit more about the technical details later. But we're here to educate, test, and then to carry out intelligence and investigations into doping within sport. And that's the Paralympic sports as well as the Olympic sports. So that's the broad background. From the board's perspective, I think there are 3 things that we really need to focus on. The first is about setting the strategy for the organisation going forwards. And we're just into a new strategy, which we'll hopefully bring out in the next financial year. There's making sure Nicole and the directors deliver against that strategy. There's what I pejoratively call the governance stuff that any board and any arm's length body has to do. Really important, getting through governance statements, everything we're required to do about audit and risk, etc., etc. But important nonetheless, and a fair amount of our time. And we try to look at ourselves against a range of governance codes as well. And then the third element, I think, is the representational element. So board members should go out and sell the mission of the organisation. And equally, they should be bringing in both their personal knowledge and expertise, but also what key stakeholders are saying about us and how we do our role. So that's very much a 2-way thing. And I think if board members, new and experienced, sort of keep to those broad guidelines, and it really sets the relationship with the operational directors in much more context.
That's great. Thank you, Trevor. It gives us a good sense of it. So, Nicole, I'm going to come to you now. We know that you're looking for 2 people to join your board. Can you give us a sense of what skills and experiences you'd like them to bring?
Oh, I was going to say this one's for Trevor, really, but essentially there are 2 facets of experience that we're looking for to join the UCAD board. One is in relation to sort of the commercial side of our business. Not only do we receive a grant in aid budget from our sponsored department, DCMS, but we also generate outside of a pandemic year, to the tune of about £3 million by contracting our services to a number of either major events, international organisations, and sports themselves. And there's always a pressure on us as an organisation to find more opportunities for generating commercial income. And we really would welcome somebody to bring that perspective to the board to help us to identify, whether we've considered all elements, all angles, all possibilities. We're interested in learning a bit more about whether sponsorship is an option for us as an organisation to pursue, given we run this role of this rather strange role of being sort of akin to the police. And we've been told on numerous occasions, nobody wants to sponsor the police, but they do. And so how do we navigate that path? We're also, as we embark on this new strategic plan, we're also looking for individuals who have experience of the world of data analytics, sort of that insight. How do we better harness all of the fantastic wealth of information there is out there to better understand the landscape in which we're operating, to enable us to constantly evolve and adapt according to the picture that we're seeing? We very much think that data is going to play a huge part in that, but also to ultimately lead to, what is incumbent on all government departments and all of their sponsors, to look for more effective and efficient ways of delivering our programme. So that's just a taster of sort of the sorts of skills we're looking for. Obviously, I'm looking for somebody who is suitably challenging, but supportive at the same time. And looking for somebody who clearly understands that tightrope that a board member has to navigate between sort of the strategic direction of travel versus not getting bogged down in the weeds and the operational detail.
And Trevor, do you want to add anything to that from what you've sort of seen? Any gaps on the board? Any other areas of skill or experience that you think would be helpful?
These are 2 new posts, and as a result of us having a board effectiveness review about 18 months ago, we identified the need. And we've had some fantastic support in DCMS in getting these 2 additional posts put on the board. So we recognised they were skill areas that we were short of. I think the first one, there's this sort of overlap between commercial, sponsorship, marketing, and what I've also called strategic communications, because I think there's a real link. And part of that is how do we communicate and use the organisation's influence, both in terms of anti-doping, but wider public health issues. How do we encourage others to our mission? And that's not just come with a pot of money to help us through an education program, but actually put it into the lifeblood of others with through strategic partnerships or otherwise. So I think the first one's a really sort of interesting role, and people could come from a slightly different direction from each of those, and I think we'd sort of gain the advantage of having the discussions about what does this actually look like. And then the data one, Nicole's absolutely right. There's a wealth of data out there, and I pity sports people today because however many yards you run in whatever time it is, it's there and everyone can see it. But for us to make sense of that, and for us to help develop that as the insight into the doping threats in the UK, I think is really important. So they're new, and they bring very different skill sets to the range which we've already got in the board, where we can cover off elite sports, law, sports medicine, sports psychology, pharmacology, that sort of stuff. So it's a great opportunity to see 2 people come and bring that to us.
That's brilliant, Trevor. Thank you. So you've touched on the skills. Nicole, you've said, as a chief exec, you are looking for high challenge and high support as well. One thing you haven't mentioned is whether they need to have non-exec experience. So one of the people that submitted a question beforehand asked that. Nicole, do you want to share, as a chief exec, do you think the new candidates for the board need to have board experience?
I do believe, and Trevor will correct me if I'm wrong, that one of our current board members came to us with no experience. So, we've all been there. We all have to start somewhere. And I actually think that UK Anti-Doping is a really nice organisation to start to cut your teeth on. It's not too big. Yes, it's not without its challenges and debate and discussion at board, but that's great. It's all done in a very constructive and friendly manner. And I think it would be a fantastic opportunity for somebody who doesn't have experience, provided they're able to bring the necessary skill set and they're prepared to sort of roll their sleeves up and get involved. I mean, we certainly don't want somebody who's passive. So as long as you've got an opinion and you are happy to read sometimes a wealth of information on a whole range of topics, then I say, fill your boots.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nicole. Now, Trevor, a question that came in was, someone said they've got childcare commitments. How flexible are board meetings, and what other meetings would they need to commit to?
I mean, there's also, we have four formal board meetings a year, which are set, and a couple of other strategy sessions. And then there's the committees which we have. So we've got remuneration committee, which meets 3 times a year, and audit and risk, which meets 5 times a year. And they're pretty much set into a battle rhythm, and broadly they're morning or afternoon. But we do have, any extra meetings we fit around other people. So actually our sort of ad hoc emergency meetings tend to be about 8 o'clock on a Monday evening, because we've got, certainly with the executives, 2 or 3 people with childcare responsibilities, people with odd day jobs where you've got to be in court or in the office. We've also got people with care responsibilities for elder relatives. So in this day and age, it's ridiculous not to be flexible to that. And of course, what we've learned over the last 12 months is that these forms of engagement through Zoom or Teams or whatever form we're using enable us to get together. It's great to meet personally, but we now have the opportunity to be much more flexible. And I think for me, that encourages a degree of flexibility in terms of where people are. If you're the right person and you're currently on the Isle of Skye or you're in the sort of the Western Northern Ireland or whatever, actually, great to see you in London or Loughborough occasionally, but we can still work with you. So from our perspective, we've got people with childcare responsibilities, we've got people with caring responsibilities, we've got people with work responsibilities. I've got a dog responsibility behind me at the moment who's making apologies for that. But this is about trying to get the best people for the role, and we shouldn't be hidebound by the fact that you've got to be there at that time with everyone immediately in front of you. That's not the way it works anymore. That's
brilliant. Really encouraging message there, Trevor. Thank you. So lastly, I'm curious, are you athletes yourselves? And someone put in this question to say that they're a data expert and only have a general understanding of sporting practice and athleticism. Do you need to be from the sports background?
No. I mean, we've got a Paralympian and we've got Olympian on our board, and that brings that, the data person or someone else brings exactly those skills. Mm-hmm. An interest in sport is great. Actually not being interested in sport is great because you don't worry about the sport bit then. As to athletics, apart from a few very significant victories in the Kent Festival of Sport, 1972, 15 to 17 age group, I can't claim much since. So Nicole,
that's brilliant, Trevor.
Nicole's far better than that.
I'm not sure I can top that. I was very sporty at school, but no, I think ever since starting a working life, I do try to keep really, really active and fit through a number of different means. But no, I don't have a sports background. A number of our staff do, either sort of semi-professional or sort of county level. So yes, we have that lovely mix of people with a real in-depth experience, first-hand experience of sport. But I think, as Trevor says, I think, one of our values is passion, and not only just passion about what we do and the role that we play in sport, but it obviously helps if you care about why you're protecting sport in the first place and what it symbolizes and stands for. And therefore, I think if you could at least come from that perspective, then I think you're landing in the right place. But we certainly don't require anybody to be an elite sports person. I mean, you just have to look at Trevor and I to know that that's not a prerequisite.
There is no fitness test, but we do have a world record holder on the board, which is something to be proud of, at least, and it's a proper world record as well. So it fits in. I mean, I think the notion of you're interested, you're probably interested in the discipline you bring. I think we're all interested in sports and different sports or different exercises in different ways. I think the other thing which I guess looking around the board and also the organisation, which is quite writ large, is about a sense of integrity, and that's integrity about how we operate, because we operate within a rules-based regulatory framework, so integrity is important. But integrity being part of the notion of doing things right, and I don't say the old Corinthian spirit of sport, but actually operating with integrity and the best of intentions. And dare I say, that's part of the sort of the values which we more broadly want to see in sport and in society.
Trevor, that's brilliant. Thank you. And a good note to end our guidance on the role and what you're all about. And so good luck to anyone who is thinking about applying for this role. And lastly, I'm just going to hand over to Lucinda, the Diversity and Talent Lead for the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. How do you apply for this role? What's the process, Lucinda?
Thanks, Sarah. So it's a really straightforward application process. It's just a CV of no more than 2 sides and a covering letter of the same length. And that covering letter is a supporting statement in which you can just tick off all the essential criteria. So just pop them at the essential and the additional criteria for each role. So just pop them at the top of the paragraph, answer away, and submit them. The deadline is the 11th of March, so that's next week. But if you have any issues in the meantime, do get in touch with me or the appointments team. The interviews will be held on the week commencing the 3rd of May, and it's just a panel of 3 people, Trevor of which is 1, so it's a really lovely, friendly interview panel. And the only thing to bear in mind about the appointments process is that it does take longer than your standard recruitment competition. But rest assured that at any point you can get in contact with us and we can update you. And we are working hard on it. Either, you know, we're like a swan, the public appointments process. It looks like nothing's happening, but we're working really hard behind the scenes. So yes, just to say thank you so much to Nicole and Trevor for discussing this really incredible role.
Thank you.
There we go.